Okay, I guess we're live. Good morning, everyone. This is a joint meeting with both the House and the Senate Ag Committees with folks from rural Vermont as well as NOFA, Vermont. And would like to welcome all of you to our joint meeting. And to start with, I guess we ought to introduce ourselves and you folks can, the guests can introduce themselves as they speak and get on the program. I'm Bobby Starr and I chair the Senate Ag Committee.
Hi, Chris Pearson, Senator from Chittenden County, Vice Chair of the Senate Ag Committee. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Anthony Polina. Excuse me, Anthony Polina, Washington County Senate.
Corey Parent, Franklin County.
I'm glad you caught on there, Parent.
I was looking for Collmore.
We also have Brian Collmore is a member, but he had to go report to another committee on a bill a few minutes ago. Carolyn, would you like to introduce your House members or have them introduce themselves?
Sure. Thanks, Bobby. I'm Representative Carolyn Partridge, and I represent the towns of Athens, Brookline, Grafton, part of North Westminster, all of Rockingham, and my hometown of Windham. And I'll go to Rodney.
My name is Rodney Graham. I represent the Orange 1 district, which is Williamstown, Washington, Orange, Corinth, Berkshire, and Chelsea.
All right. And Tom Bach.
I'm Representative Tom Bach. I represent the towns of Chester, Andover, Baltimore, and North Springfield.
Thanks, Tom. Terry.
Representative Terry Norris. I am in the Addison Rutland district, towns of Benson, Orwell, Shoreham, and
All right. John O'Brien.
Good morning. I'm John O'Brien. I represent Royalton and my hometown of Tunbridge. I'm going to mute the member from Ovine there. Also, it's hometown of rural Vermont's Caroline Gordon.
As you may be able to tell, John is a sheep farmer. All right. Oh my gosh, who else is here? Vicki.
Good morning. I'm Representative Vicki Strong from Albany, and I represent 7 towns in Orleans, Caledonia counties.
All right, Heather.
Good morning, all. Heather Supernant. I represent Windsor 4-1, which is the towns of Barnard, Pomfret, Queechee, and West Hartford.
Thanks, Heather. And Henry. Excuse me, Henry.
Hi there, Henry Pearl. I represent Danville, Peacham, and Cabot.
Great, thank you.
So we're all set. Again, welcome everybody. And the first person that I would like to call on is Carolyn Gordon, Caroline is the director, legislative director for rural Vermont, and appears before us from time to time on a host of ag issues. So good morning, Caroline, and welcome.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our first virtual Small Farm Action Day here, meet and greet with legislators. So I'm really just here to set the stage a little bit. I appreciate all the senators and representatives' time to speak with us here today. The farmers followed an open invitation to use this as a forum to present what's issues that arise for them really personally on their farms, and whether they are within or without beyond our policy priorities of rural Vermont and NOFA Vermont. So I also welcome Maddie Kempner here with me today. And so what you hear from the farmers today may or may not reflect some of our policy priorities. It's really a chance for farmers to engage in advocacy, learn about the legislative process, and hopefully build some relationships with you all. So with that, I pass it on, and I'll also have to excuse myself. I will pop in and out of the meeting, but I have also my colleague Graham Unangs Ruvenacht here from rural Vermont, if necessary, to field question, and otherwise Maddie will be also here to help guide through the event. But without further ado, thank you all for coming, and enjoy your presentations.
Yeah, thank you, Carolyn. Caroline, Stephen Leslie, Cedar Mountain Farm. Are you with us?
Yes, I am here.
Yep.
Chair Starr and Madam Chair Partridge, senators and representatives of the Ag and Forestry Committees. I'm grateful for this opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Stephen Leslie, along with my wife, Carrie Gwalt, operate Cedar Mountain Farm, a 24 Jersey cow dairy and 1.5 acre no-till CSA market garden established in the Upper Valley in 1996. We are also partners in Cobb Hill Cheese. Both our businesses are located at Cobb Hill Co-housing in Heartland. I want to talk with you today about soil health management systems, why I believe this approach can revitalize our agricultural economy while providing immediate and long-term solutions to the challenges of climate change. Using the nutrient management plan of the Natural Resources Conservation Service as a model, technical assistance can help land managers develop soil health plans. The aim is for long-term adoption of practices with commensurate long-term financial and technical incentives. At Cedar Mountain Farm, we have a successful track record of working with federal and state-funded programs. For instance, it was through a collaboration with the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board, in tandem with the Upper Valley Land Trust, that Carrie and I were able to purchase an affordable unit and have access to arable land at Cobb Hill. We also participated in the Farm Viability Program, which helped us to determine our actual cost of production for pricing our products. Later, we engaged with the EQIP program, completing a series of projects over a 10-year contract that included infrastructure for intensive management grazing, enhanced irrigation capacity for our market garden, covered manure storage facility, compost stacking pad, and more. Having ourselves been beneficiaries of collaboration with these partners, we see great potential for enhancing the promotion of healthy soil practices more broadly. The strategy is to build out on the already existing programs of the state, federal, and NGO advocates in order to coordinate and amplify their collective impact exponentially. The offices of the regional conservation districts could serve as administration centers. Higher yields and enhanced resilience can be achieved through adopting practices such as cover cropping, crop rotations, composting, mulching, perennial crops, and agroforestry, adaptive multi-species grazing, organic reduced tillage and no-till practices, adaptable to market gardens, broad acre crops, and all livestock operations. Investment to help land managers to adopt these organic regenerative practices have proven to be the most cost-effective way to sequester carbon. The 5 basic principles of soil health developed by the NRCS provide a rubric. All practices should be seen as comprising a synergy of effects to restore the totality of landscape functions on the farm or forest ecosystem. Incentives would no longer be granted piecemeal for specific practices. Rather, participants would be aided to develop comprehensive plans. This is the path for creating a spiral of regeneration. Soil health management systems would allow for the land manager to apply for assistance on a variety of practices under a single contract. This would increase enrollment and voluntary compliance. In 2019, the average farm income in the US was negative $1,200. We cannot expect farmers with annual operating debt and long-term debt to be innovators and risk takers. Dairy farmers in particular must invest enormous amounts of capital in equipment, infrastructure, inputs, and labor. I think we all agree that incentives are a favorable approach over regulations. Successful pilot projects and farmer-to-farmer training are proven methods for accelerating the adoption of healthy soil practices. Each land manager would have a team of technical assistants performing regular site visits to monitor and assist in implementation. Site characteristics and social context would be taken into account to ensure an equitable and just transition toward organic regenerative management. Since it is not practical to measure carbon sequestration, water quality, and other enhanced functions on every farm every year, UVM should get additional funding to conduct trials and monitor pilot farms to establish median averages resulting from the implement of soil health plans. farmers will be expected to document all practices. Human civilization is completely dependent on ecosystem services. Let's ensure that payment for ecological services is not restricted to cleaner water and carbon sequestration. We need a holistic measure of all the ecological, social, and economic benefits our farmers contribute to Vermont. We need to take into account all of the landscape functions of a farm or forest and how restoring these contributes to the health of the entire bioregion. Forests under management for old growth characteristics can provide a local sustainable supply of forest products while acting as tremendous carbon sinks. Agroforestry practices including silviculture, silvopasture, alley cropping, native species hedgerows, and riparian buffers all enhance soil and water quality. Not only do local organic regenerative farms sequester carbon and restore habitat, they also reduce the overall carbon footprint associated with food production by eliminating chemical inputs, reducing tractor use, and reducing transportation through local distribution. And I'll wrap up here. To face the challenges of abrupt climate change and loss of biodiversity, we need progressive soil health policy reflective of a shift in societal priorities where soil is recognized as basic infrastructure. We need to ensure that those who can produce food, medicine, fuel, fiber, and building materials while regenerating soil are guaranteed a living wage the same way we do for all other essential service providers. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. And just for your knowledge and the listeners, we and the House Committee both have worked quite a bit on ecosystems here this session. And I know the House is sending us a bill dealing with it. And we on the Senate side are going to be voting on a bill, maybe in the full Senate, that passed through our committee and through appropriations yesterday, giving ecosystems a working group, Ryan Patch's group. I don't know if you've worked with Ryan, but we're going to fund that if it gets through the House at a $250,000 limit this year to move that forward, and with some money so we hopefully will start helping people that want to grow healthy soils a little bit of money to help them move forward. So just pass that on. Our next
Bobby, could I just interrupt you? Just so you
Sure.
know, the extension of the payment for ecosystem services working group is in the housekeeping bill, and it has already passed the House. It should be on its way to you.
Oh, yeah. How much money did you put in that?
We did not put any money in it. That's your job.
Well, I guess we already did, I hope. But it'll be your job to keep it in when it gets back to the House.
That's okay. We're
So
on it.
that's good. And you could raise that, I'm sure, maybe. So we have Reverend M. Murata with us next. So Reverend, are you with us?
I am, thank you.
Yes, there you are.
Yes. Hi, my name is Reverend Moretti. I'm with Murmuration Farm in Fairfax, Vermont, Franklin County. Thank you so much for inviting us here. I'd like to speak about the limits on on-farm slaughter. The limits placed on the amount of livestock that can be slaughtered on farm is a barrier actually to my growth as a farm and a new enterprise. I would like to understand the legislature's intent behind the placement of a limit and rationale for the limits applied. I appreciate the decisions are typically made in response to a question or a problem, but I've yet to be able to learn what the original problem had been, so I cannot thoughtfully make a proposal on how to increase or remove the limits. I'd like to explain for you how these limits on the slaughter of animals on my farm also create a limit for myself, for my business, and for my community. I've had a hobby farm at my homestead since 2003. It began with a large garden and a few chickens, and as with many small farms, incrementally grew in both volume and variety. I added pigs to my farm in 2015 and have been breeding and raising them since. My position in population health at Northwestern Medical Center in St. Albans was eliminated at the time public quarantine began a year ago. While quarantining at home with my disabled son, I decided to pivot to make my farm my primary occupation and income, instead of attempting to re-enter a potentially unstable corporate situation. Within a few months, I had over 150 animals thriving on my property. I also began to produce dog treats, freeze-drying portions that my customers ordinarily do not take when harvesting an animal. I combine the raw organ meat with fruits or vegetables grown on my land or local farms to create freeze-dried supplemental food that have become more popular than I had expected. I do not send my animals to slaughterhouses. Most of my animals were born on my land and have been cared for and cared about by me from the moment of birth until their moment of death. Not only do I conduct a ritual of gratitude prior to harvest, I also ensure that they are completely at ease and calm when comes time to slaughter. This is important to me and to my customers, as this ensures there is minimal adrenaline or stress-related hormone released into their system to alter or taint the meat. Some do not believe that this is a thing, but you cannot convince my customers otherwise. Were I to send my animals to a slaughterhouse, I am at risk of losing customers. Being a live product, an animal's growth is unpredictable. I can influence it, but cannot control it. I make a commitment to my customers to harvest when the animal reaches agreed upon market weight. When they do, I call the slaughterer and butcher and make the plan. This ensures I'm delivering the quality product that both my customers and I insist upon. If I need to book an appointment to slaughter an animal that might not even have been born yet, I run the risk of having to slaughter prematurely or having to give up a slot, and therefore not having the opportunity to book another. I'm left with an animal that cannot be slaughtered and a customer with an empty freezer. I am not interested in sacrificing product quality for convenience. When my pigs are harvested, I save the tracheas and deliver them to the local EMTs so that they may practice intubations. I don't know about you, but if I were in a situation where I needed to be intubated, I would like to have a provider that is skilled, practiced, and confident. Having this tool available at no cost is an asset to my community. I have delivered pig's feet to the nursing school so that students may practice sutures. A pig's skin is very similar in texture and reaction as human skin, and this gives a hands-on learning experience for these practitioners. Having this tool available at no cost is an asset to my community. Were I to send my animals to a slaughterhouse, I would not be able to provide these tools to providers. I use many of the organ meats to make dog treats. My business is dependent upon being able to use as much of an animal that I raise as possible. Were I to send an animal to a slaughterhouse, I would only be given the organs deemed safe for human consumption, and the rest of this valuable product would be destroyed. My access to literal raw material would be greatly diminished, and my ability to meet customer demand crippled. This would put a severe limit on my ability to grow as an independent Vermont-based business. I did not know about these limits until I began doing my research around what I needed to do to become a viable farm. I harvested 28 swine last year. If not for a convenient slide of the calendar, I would have gone over the annual limit and faced repercussions. I intend to harvest at least 25 swine this year, and I'm adding goats to my land. I don't have the luxury of that blip in the calendar this year, and I'm faced with the choice between turning my back on my customers and community or not complying with the law. The current on-farm slaughter limits are a barrier to my ability to grow and sustain a new farm and related enterprise. I am interested in working with you to develop increased limits that meet the needs of the farmers and the original intent of the legislation.
Thank you, Reverend. I don't want to take up a lot of your time, but on the swine on-farm slaughter, is it done by numbers or by weight? I know it's either one or the other.
Well, it says by numbers, but the form that I report on is by weight, so it really doesn't cross over.
Yeah, and just to answer your first question real quick, and then we'll move on. When we put that into statute many years ago, we had a very rough time getting it even passed, and that's one reason why the numbers are in there and so low. It was rough. I believe there was a sheep farmer from up your way that wanted this so he could do his own sheep at home, but I know we had a hard time getting it passed, but its time has come to raise that limit. We haven't had, to my knowledge, one problem with on-farm slaughter, and so I think its time has come to look at that. But anyways,
I'm sorry, can I ask a question? You said you had a hard time getting it passed, meaning allowing for on-farm slaughter or putting a limit on on-farm slaughter?
No, to get it passed. The ag agency and the head of the meat division back at that point in time was it was really rough getting them to budge on it, and that has all changed, I think, to some degree at the present time. So,
yes.
Senator Pearson.
Maybe you already said this, Mr. Chair, but the federal government's really uptight about this idea. So, everything we do, if I understand, is sort of tiptoeing around their concerns and trying to stay in compliance with federal law.
Thank you.
Yes, but anyways, that's something that we actually really should look at. We on the Senate side did put $500,000 into helping to advance our slaughter facilities so we could increase the output. Some slaughter facilities are behind a whole year if you wanted to take an animal to a slaughter facility. And so we are beefing that up. Maybe the House, when they get that bill in their committee and the Ag Committee, they could do a little work on the on-farm slaughter, because the issue, it would fit right into our proposal that we're sending over. So anyways, we'll keep an eye out and try to help you with that situation. Alan, no, Jericho now.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much for welcoming us today. My name is Jericho Bicknell. I run Crooked Sapling Farm. Can you hear me okay? Last time I had to shut off.
It's kind of a hit and miss.
I'm going to turn off my video. You can hear. I apologize. Okay, so I'll start again. My name is Jericho Bicknell. Thank you so much for letting us come and talk to you today. I run Crooked Sapling Farm in Newark, Vermont, with my husband and our two children, Lyra, who's 6, and Amos is 2 years old. We have a small flock, but growing flock of Icelandic sheep that we raise for fleece and for meat. And we have about 80 laying hens, which we sell eggs. And we practice intensive rotational grazing. So in the summer months, every day we're moving animals around about eight acres of pasture, really trying to do the best we can for the animals and for our land and soil health. It's very important to us. We've also planted many fruit and nut and shade trees throughout the pasture. So none of the fruit trees are bearing yet, but in the next few years, we should start to get some apples and plums and cherries, hopefully, fingers crossed. It's pretty cold up here, but yes, so we're trying to do the best we can for the land and for our animals and for ourselves and our community, growing quality, fresh, nutritious food. This year will be the first year that we're actually trying to sell lamb. So I wanted to speak a little bit about some of the challenges that we have encountered in meat processing today, and in hope that it'll encourage. It sounds like there's a lot of good support for the on-farm slaughter exemption, which is great. So encourage continued and increasing those limits, and also any further efforts to ease the meat processing bottleneck. We have had a lot of interest from our community in buying lamb from us, but many people hesitant to commit to a whole animal. So the first thing I looked into was trying to do retail and have our animals slaughtered at an inspected facility, but quickly found that everywhere is booked up through 2022. And we are on a waiting list. But in the meantime, we still have to have a plan for slaughtering our animals in case we don't get in to the slaughterhouse. So we are planning to do on-farm slaughter, but even with that, the butchers near us are all also incredibly busy and booked, the custom butchers. And so the only date we had to have a date of August 20th to do our slaughtering, which is much earlier than we would normally. That's about 1 or 2 months earlier than we would normally slaughter. So it means our carcass weights are going to be lower than we would hope. Yeah, so that's our experience. And I'm so grateful that there is an on-farm slaughter personal use exemption that allows us to even sell any of our meat this year. And I just hope that that this can continue in the future, and also further efforts to, like Senator Starr mentioned, increasing the retail, the capacity, the slaughterhouse capacity, or other ways of easing that bottleneck in the state. So thank you again so much.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you, Jericho. We're getting an echo or something. And hopefully the $500,000 we put into the slaughter facility on the Senate side, hopefully by this fall, it may open up some slaughter facilities to do some advanced machinery expansion, and there's also money there to help with at VTC to set up a training program for meat processing. But if you had an itinerant slaughterer, if you could find one of those folks to come to your farm, that would probably get you out of a bind for for this year. But good luck to you. And if, you know, if we can help, get hold of Caroline or Maddie and you know, that's what we're in Montpelier for, is to help you folks. Alan Rites, Director of Public and Governmental Affairs at Hanover Co-op. I see you, Alan.
Good morning. My
Welcome.
thanks to you, both chairs and members of each committee. A quick introduction for those who are vaguely familiar with the Hanover Co-op food stores. Hanover is a New Hampshire name, but we very much have some strong and deep Vermont roots. We were founded in 1936. We're among the oldest food co-ops in the United States. Adamant Co-op is a few months older than we are. And we're the second largest food cooperative in the US. So that gives us some heft and some muscle, but also responsibility. And it is the reason that I'm on the call today. And I wanted to just give everyone on the call a little bit of background on our Vermont roots, but also how we are involved in the local food shed and some serious issues we see. So to tick off a few of the fast facts, our Vermont locations, in order that they were established, we've had land in Norwich, Vermont since 1973, and since 77, it's been the home to the Norwich Farmers Market. We have a large co-op kitchen. It's a production facility in Wilder. We opened that in 2000. 2010, we opened our White River Junction grocery store, which has just been a fantastic community grocery and just seems to improve year after year. That's about a 15,000 square foot store. And as of early 2019, we opened our second auto service center on Route 5 in Norwich. And finally, I'm speaking to you from our administrative offices in White River Junction, up in the area behind the big post office in White River. So our payroll of Vermont employees is about $5.2 million. I only add that to say that, you know, we're bullish on Vermont. We've, as you could tell by those years I ticked off and the growth and the investment, this has been a wonderful state to be involved in. And especially when it comes to sourcing local and regional food. This business spends about $16.5 million within a 100-mile radius with small producers, farmers, specialty food makers, cheese makers. About 2/3 of that money is spent in Vermont. Vermont is just a vibrant sector of hardworking people that bring great products. Let's fast forward to this pandemic that we've all dealt with. Over the years, we have made that commitment to local and regional agriculture, and it paid off when the pandemic hit, because we were already sourcing from local meat suppliers and poultry producers. But when the pandemic hit, everything changed. But when small independent grocers like ours, and even though we're an $85 million business, we're still small in the big world, we were able to have the muscle to quickly check and have secondary and third level relationships. And that's important when you've got a food shed that's vibrant. About 12 years ago, we really were suffering from the bottleneck in the meat processing industry. So a store like ours is able to refurbish our meat cutting rooms. We have full service butcher shops in our stores. So we changed it so we could bring in hanging weight of lamb, pork, beef, and we always cut down from primals, grinding everything from whole cuts. And so we were able to alleviate some of the bottleneck. You know, it helps a farmer and other distributors to help us bring in a hanging weight of something, and that helps. But the bottleneck is still so critical. And when we think of those small producers out there, as Jericho had just met, or it might have been Jericho mentioned, the processing elements, you know, there's only so much we can do. Right now, in my role, I'm working with Rural Vermont, VTC, Vermont Sustainable Job Funds, in some very early conversations of how we can help with apprenticeships or help with just supporting the idea of training and adding our voice to this important job. NOFA Vermont is just been such a strong partner, as has New England Farmers Union and Vital Communities. So where does this all take us to? Training and career opportunities, as well as the processing plants. These are interconnected. There's no way around them. As I said, we're a big store. We're able to refurbish a back room, but a lot of the smaller food co-ops and the small independent grocers, they're not in that position, but they would gladly promote and offer more local products from Vermont when it comes to our livestock and poultry farmers. So my ask from all of you is actually an offer. I'm in a position to add our voice, and my sleeves are rolled up. So I would say when it comes to legislation or insights from a retailer perspective, I'm here, I'm at the table, and I look forward to supporting anything we can do to strengthen the food shed. Whether a product ever comes through our doors or not, it's our responsibility to be part of this conversation. And I thank you for letting me be part of this one today.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for that offer, Alan. If you could get hold of Pat Moulton at BTC, as far as training, they're going to be setting that up, the training for meat processing, and the two, you may be able to, be part of that.
And thank you for that suggestion. I'm actually going to be on a call with Pat tomorrow morning. So the wheels are rolling, and a lot of work to be done. So we're here for it.
And just for your information, tomorrow morning, we're going to be hearing about the VTC farm that's in Norwich, and that's sort of in trouble with it's not a good situation, and we're going to be talking about that tomorrow morning. So
okay,
hopefully something good will come from that.
And I hope so. And there's we know of a few other vendors that bring their material to our back door who are also in some very difficult situations.
Yeah. Next is Heidi Coppertine. Heidi, are you with us?
Senator Starr, we didn't get full confirmation that Heidi was going to be joining us, so she may not be here, and I don't see her. So you can probably move on to the next person.
Evan Holt.
Hello, my name is Evan Hoyt, and I'm very grateful to be here with you all. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm calling from Huntington, Vermont. I am a part of Brushbrook Community Farm and Bakery. Our farm functions really differently than most, so it has unique challenges and interactions with state policy. I hope to introduce the project and talk about some specifics of where it interacts with state policy. These include current legislation around employment law, as well as the on-farm slaughter legislation we've been discussing, and raw milk production. Those are a few particular challenges. So Brushbrook is an experiment in alternative modes of food production. We seek to offer reparations to the more than human world, and the main way we do that is by building relationship. We attempt to build relationship by offering food as a gift. So instead of transaction as the atomic unit of transfer, gift offers a way to move food or equipment or even labor and money in ways that, in our experience, has a great capacity to strengthen relationships and allow goods to flow to where they're needed the most. So we are a farm and a bakery, and we do the work of food production, but we do not sell anything. For example, the soup we make from the bodies of our grass-fed cows and local vegetables is offered at no charge. After all, we receive the beef and the broth at no charge, and they were made possible by an abundance of grasses, which in turn grew from freely given sunlight and rains. So we see our work as farmers as participant in this massive flow of food and energy. I recognize that this may seem far-fetched or extreme. In some ways, though, we see what we do as doing what humans have done the world over in times before markets were imposed upon cultures and people who celebrate generosity and discourage accumulation. A result of our first year of this work is a thriving community of growers and eaters. Our farm functions in some ways a lot like a regional food hub, but entirely based on gift. Without the challenges or stigmas associated with food shelves, nor the cost prohibitiveness of organic farm stands, we've been able to distribute measureless bread and soup to our neighbors. The community in turn has supported us, giving us financial gifts enough to keep the lights on, buy the wheat that's milled for the bread, and pay a few of the farmers a humble stipend. We're also able to persist financially by not owning or renting any land. Just like we glean vegetables from nearby farms, we glean unused pastures and greenhouses in Huntington Valley with permissions from the landowners to make use of what's otherwise fallow. In many ways, Vermont state agricultural policy has enabled us to do the work we love. And I'm grateful for each of you for your work and for your role in that. In some other ways, projects like ours have some unique hurdles to jump. For example, employment law, which is based upon preventing capitalist exploitation, is designed to ensure employee wellness, but actually prevents us from having the relationship to our working community that we seek. The contractual transactional employer-employee relationship is not what we're trying to replicate, but current law demands that the stipends we use to keep the gift economy running result in that dynamic. The opportunity to one day opt out of those requirements in order to maintain that gift-based volunteer relationship would be of huge service to our community. Secondly, on-farm slaughter restrictions prevent us from having the relationships with the animals that we feel we owe them. The law prohibits farmers from participating in the slaughter, despite the farmer's lifelong relationship with and care for the animal. While a provision for sharing with non-paying guests allow us to share the meat in some capacity, restrictions on gifting the goods is a hindrance to us. Additionally, this season, we will reach limits for both cow and sheep on-farm slaughter and request that those limits be increased in the future so that we can spare the animals the traumas of anonymous, placeless deaths. This would also allow us to provide local meat without competing for slaughterhouse time, pre-scheduling slaughters as has been discussed, and without passing those associated costs onto our community when these are services we can do ourselves. Lastly, and briefly, raw milk restrictions prevent us from sharing the work and gifts of our heifers in the way that we would like. Tedious policy requiring customer contact record keeping prevents gifts from flowing outward in a way that we feel would enable equitability and food access, which is what we're all about. Those are a few of the specific policy-related barriers our community faces. More generally, we've observed that a lot of legislation is written with the assumption of markets and business as the underlying model. This can make interpreting the law for our project and similar projects very difficult. I hope the wording and content of the law can one day better support gift-based farms, and that our project can demonstrate that non-market food production is a viable route for Vermont farmers and eaters. Though some argue for the competition and complex efficiency that markets lead to, markets also require most producers to make financial profitability their primary goal, firmly above even the care of the land, the wellness of their eaters, and the closeness of their community. From the perspective of eaters, markets enable quick transactional relationships with food producers or just distributors and lead to a distance between themselves and the place and people that bring their food into being. Lastly, markets determine who has access to the food that the land and life on Earth is producing. It does this in a system that disadvantages people in dozens of clear and well-demonstrated ways that we know about. So for these reasons and more, non-market food systems are an emerging response to the troubling times we're in. It's my hope that the many folks who are willing and able to do the hard work of food production for their community will be supported by the state in the future, even and especially if their efforts exist outside of the pervasive market context that we're accustomed to. Thank you for listening, for the time, and for your consideration.
Yeah, thank you, Evan. We did hear testimony this morning from the the House. I don't know if Heather's still on or not. They did take up a bill that altered the raw milk issue to some extent, and I don't know if that movement would help in your particular case or not, but they did. The House Committee on Ag has worked on the raw milk issue, trying to make it easier to I guess sell it or to take it to a neighbor's TSA to dispose of it to their customers or people. So you might want to check with the House Committee on that. If it needs more tweaking, get hold of us because the bill's going to be in our committee next. So thanks for being with us this morning. Jane, is it Lanzi?
Jane Lanza.
Lanza?
Yes, Jane Lanza, that's correct.
Welcome.
Thank you for listening and for the opportunity to speak here today. My name is Jane Lanza. I run a family farm with my husband, Ben, and our 2 young children called Family Tree in Sheldon Springs, Vermont. I represent our family and other rural small farmers like ourselves throughout the state. We are requesting reformations to Act 164 such that the adult use cannabis market in Vermont includes a farm to consumer license and participation options like cultivation, resale, delivery, on-site consumption perhaps, outside of whether a town opts in or not. Our particular town, Sheldon Springs, felt legalization was too confusing to pursue this year and shut down our repeated requests to opt in or include this on the ballot. We considered collecting signatures to petition a special meeting to push reconsideration, but it felt wrong during the pandemic to go door to door. On a personal level, we're concerned we may be left behind neighboring towns. We don't have the ability as an established physical farm to pick up and relocate, like a larger outside company might, based on which town chooses to opt in or not. On a community level, we're concerned our town could be left behind other towns. And while this inequitable distribution of potential opportunity in the craft market is potentially hurting the individual and the town, it more so impedes our progress as a state with respect to the rest of the states in the nation participating in a craft market. The very nature of Vermont craft business is that it is open and inclusive, and to hinder participation from all regions and all Vermonters hurts the growth of this industry at large. We're internationally celebrated for our maple, our cheese, our beer, and hopefully soon for our cannabis. What makes Vermont special is the diverse number of local craft contributors to these agricultural products. The land, people, and spirit of this place are unique and are unparalleled. Why not establish a thriving craft legal market here, embracing the spirit and place of these people? There are current and budding, pun intended, cannabis companies like mine throughout the state that are already committed to regenerative agriculture and sustainability, working closely with the Agency of Agriculture for compliance and safety. We are one of many successful craft farm-to-store hemp product companies in Vermont who have already adapted to changing state and federal requirements and gone above and beyond for transparency with our lab testing and safe packaging. Together, grassroots companies like mine have already started to build a cannabis market here in Vermont that is putting our CBD quality above many other qualities from other states nationwide. Nonetheless, my company, Family Tree, has been denied bank loans, grants, and many business development programs, as were hemp farmers. And this isn't considered a specialty crop in Vermont. Why deny small farms and minorities equal opportunity to participate in the cannabis market because our town won't opt in? With all of these parties involved, as is proven here with CBD, we could have a thriving craft community in Vermont and become even more so a huge tourist destination. The position taken through limiting participation to opt-in towns makes exclusive opportunities and puts one farm at a better advantage than another. Having spent ample time in legal markets out west, we've come to understand the integrative benefit that a legal adult use industry can have on local economies. Our organic hemp grows hillside with water fed by Sheldon Springs. In the late 1800s, Sheldon, Vermont was the leading water resort of the United States based on the healing minerals in the water contained here. Right now, Sheldon, Vermont does not have a single tourist destination. Our vision, inspired by the success of the craft beer industry in Vermont, is to revive agritourism and to connect people to the land. We love what we do. We are scientists, we are farmers, we grow organic. From soil to oil, we handcraft everything as a labor of love. Our uniqueness is from our practice, our history, and our land. For years, my husband and I each have wanted to work in cannabis, but not leave Vermont, our home state, our passion. Our goal is the opposite. It is to bring people to Vermont, to stimulate agritourism and to restore young people's relationships with the land. We have gone out west to learn a lot in legal markets, but we have not left Vermont, and we are patiently waiting for Vermont to catch up. We launched our CBD product line during COVID, a global pandemic, not realizing that would be the case. And despite the downturn in the economies throughout the world and locally, our hemp farm is profitable and it's growing fast. My husband and I have left behind our career in engineering and wellness to pursue our dream of buying our family farm and being good stewards of the land for our children. We do not want to return to jobs where we're forced to commute out of rural Vermont, put our children in daycare with limited options, and give up on this dream of caring for our family farm because there's no opportunity for us to participate in the legal cannabis market, where in other places it shows that CBD just gets left behind THC. We would love to see direct avenues for small businesses with quality processes and products to succeed in the legal cannabis industry. We are requesting that the Vermont adult use market include a direct farm to consumer license with consideration for farms reselling their crop, perhaps delivering or on-site consumption. Small Vermont farms and CBD companies deserve participation outside of whether their town opts in or not. Thank you for your consideration and thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you, Jane. I'll call on our Vice Chair of Senate Ag, Senator Pearson. Maybe you can give a little overview of where we've been, Chris.
Yeah, well, just one point. I mean, I agree with a lot of what Jane's saying, not all of it, but just to make sure it's clear, the towns opting in, first of all, the Senate, that was not our position. We didn't want that at all. It was part of the compromise with the governor and the House. But the only piece of the possession stream in the cannabis world that requires an affirmative town vote is having a store. So if you want to cultivate, if you want to process, you have to get a permit, but you don't have there's no local authority to stop that from happening. So just want to make sure that that's clear.
I appreciate you responding. I have been told the latest is that it is still up for debate as far as cultivation and wholesale go, and that might also be required opt-in.
No, not at all. The law is real clear that it's just for the stores. We were trying to get a compromise that said towns could opt out, but we wouldn't have had a bill if we did that. So anyway, no, it's just for stores, just for retail. And so there is an opportunity, once we're a little further along to have a processor, to have a grow facility, whatever.
Thank you for clarifying that. So farmers have a direct route to participate in the market as is, regardless of the retail license.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, you just got to build a little, can they sell, could they have an addition on their house as a store? Does it have to be a separate building, Chris?
I don't think, well, you'd have to get the town to agree to sell, to let you sell. I don't know that we have looked at the detail of what building you'd have. And you could do that on a farm, but you'd have to get a permit just like you would in the downtown Winooski or whatever. So
what would you do if you can grow it but not sell it?
You would sell it to a processor or to the retail, you'd have to establish a connection to a retail seller.
Thank you, Jane, and thanks, Chris, for bringing that up. We have Sam Bromberg next. Is Sam with us?
Hi, I'm right here.
There
good
you are.
morning.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to speak with you all today. I know that the pressures of everything going on in the world and Vermont today are pulling all of us in a tremendous number of different directions. So I truly appreciate the time that you are sharing with me and for giving me the opportunity to explain to you why cultivating cannabis is definitely farming and why the industry needs to be inclusive and accessible. My farm, Mountain Fire Farm, is located in Danville, Vermont. We are a small but growing farm. At our farm, the priority is on soil health. We currently have about an acre of no-till and regenerative style beds used on a variety of vegetable and fruit crops. And we also raise a growing number of pigs and chickens who we utilize to help enhance the quality of our soil. We also make a fair bit of maple syrup without reverse osmosis and using wood as the fuel. So we try to keep things as handmade as possible. And looking out the window today, I think I'm going to have a little bit of work to do this afternoon. I'm here today as a resident, a taxpayer, a neighbor, and a farmer. I'm going to be blunt. Cannabis is a plant. It grows in soil with sunlight and water. But unlike every other plant, there are those who are attempting to regulate it as if it weren't a plant. Many people and organizations are proposing, advocating for, and attempting to enact laws that won't allow this plant to be cultivated outdoors by the very same farmers who cultivate all the other plants that we consume in our lives. And for a lack of a more eloquent way to phrase it, it just isn't right. As a farmer, I firmly believe that the act of cultivating cannabis outdoors and under the sun is farming. And I believe that any and all farmers should be able to grow this cash crop if they so choose, with proper regulation, and it is that simple. As a taxpayer, resident, and neighbor, it is because I believe that starting from scratch is inefficient, ineffective, and costly, and that most of the issues surrounding cannabis cultivation, such as product safety, water quality, public health, and the use of potentially hazardous chemicals, are already issues that are being addressed by our absolutely outstanding Department of Agriculture. So I firmly believe that we should allow the same organization that is already doing a phenomenal job ensuring the safety of our food supply chain and the safety of those who work within the chain to have as much input as possible regarding the regulation of cannabis. To me, it just makes sense. I'm not here today to lecture you or attempt to educate any of you about the failures of prohibition, but the evidence that prohibition has failed surrounds us here in Vermont, where it is nearly impossible to go anywhere without being reminded about our incredible craft brewing industry. It is promoted as a tourist draw. It is recognized as an industry that has successfully created jobs, and it is an industry that Vermont can be proud of. I firmly believe that it is high time for Vermont's cannabis industry to become another avenue of great pride and commercial success for Vermont, so long as it is regulated in a manner that allows for inclusive participation. Two of the factors that drive the success of the craft brewing industry in Vermont are accessibility and innovation. As far as accessibility goes, any Vermonter who has the drive, determination, and the ability to navigate the licensing process is able to legally own and operate a brewery and sell their product to the public. Innovation does not exist without accessibility, and industries do not succeed over the long term without innovation. I firmly believe that to have a flourishing cannabis industry in Vermont, we must recognize that the outdoor cultivation of cannabis is farming, and just as importantly, the industry needs to remain accessible to anybody who would like to partake in it. I thank you all very much for sharing your time with me today. And the last thing I would like to add is an offer that I've made to many senators and representatives that nobody has taken me up on, which is that if anybody has any questions about cultivation, drying, processing, or the products that are created with dried cannabis, I am more than happy to take some time and give you a lesson on what all it entails. Thank you very much. And I really appreciate you all giving me this opportunity today.
Well, thank you very much, Sam. I don't know where to go with what you said, other than I believe we're trying to move in that direction. It's like pushing water uphill, I guess. The ag committees haven't really been active players in a lot of the discussion. And maybe in the future, we will have to take a more active role. But anyways, thanks, Sam, for your comments. We have Buster Caswell, who's an activist working on farm labor housing. And welcome, Buster.
And everyone else, thank you for your time. Everyone getting together and having discussions on various topics. Agriculture is very important. So thanks to kudos to rural Vermont and kudos to the agriculture community for listening to our agriculture community. That being said, I'm going to comment on the last gentleman. I happen to know a little bit that hemp is a plant. When my grandfather was alive, he talked about that plant and he had a book of agriculture. My grandfather was a horticulturalist and he worked at Clausen's greenhouse. So hemp is very much a valuable part of agriculture and should continue to be in the state of Vermont. So anyways, my main subject has been for the last few years has been the advocacy and folks learning opportunities that are available and should be considered throughout the state. Some of these opportunities I talk about in three main areas. One of them is rehabilitation, rebuilding, and upgrading present on the farms. The other one is the opportunities for farmers to build homes, create homes and opportunities on their farm. And the third opportunities would be for building farms for farm workers in our agricultural areas, which can be successful and should be utilized in many, many ways. And why is this important to agriculture? Very much so. I read a little bit of the great work the Ag Department report in there, and parts of that report, there's priority strategies. And in those priority strategies, it talks about the collaboration between housing organizations and leaders and other organizations to come together utilizing present resources and having a conversation. And why is this important to rural Vermont? Let me read from you just a little bit, and this can be found on the Vermont Affordable Housing Coalition's website. Okay, we all know our agricultural workforce has many challenges and it needs to grow. And part of the reason is Vermont is very rural. And in that website, it says Vermont has the second largest affordability gap for renters of any state in the nation. So that's out of 50 states. And Vermont being rural, that gap affects our agricultural community. And we need to look at those challenges and how we can address both the combination of growing our agriculture and at the same time challenge this affordability gap. And farm workers overall make low income, and that varies widely among every agriculture, whether you're talking about the folks out in the fields working the soils, or you're talking about processors and the cheese plants and so on and so forth. So that's why we need to collaborate together, possibly come up with a committee, one or two, to address the needs and the challenges so we can continue to grow our agriculture communities. And I hope this discussion moves us forward because it relates to agriculture and it relates to housing. The affordability gap is challenging. So as unique as this challenge is, it's not impossible. And we need to connect the missing link between working together with the housing community and working on the affordability gap, working in our rural communities, and how it works and is connected to agriculture. And I'll leave that discussion to all you folks because you guys are the true leaders and everyone has a voice in this. And my suggestion is to just maybe form a committee in the future. And thank you all for your time and leadership. Thank
Thank you, Buster. And from our last conversation that we had, I think I sent you a little email. We have been working with VHCB and their director has agreed to help farmers receive grants and money toward improving farm labor housing on the farms. And so we'll stay on that and hopefully, we'll see some action there. Kat Buxton, are you with us, Kat? Vermont Healthy Soils. There you are.
Yes.
Welcome.
Hello, Senator Starr. Thank you so much to all of you for being here. And thanks to Rural Vermont and NOFA Vermont for putting this event together. I'm honestly, I'm here mostly just to listen, but since I've been given the opportunity, I would like to promote as best I can for you to work on legislation that promotes regenerative ecosystems. I know there's a lot of discussion about what that word regenerative means and how we can build our soil infrastructure to support the life that we all depend on. Water quality, infrastructure, flooding, etc. And I suppose what I'd really like to know, and I wonder if the legislature is working on this at all, to understand what are the infrastructure damage costs associated with ongoing rainstorms, and especially in terms of soil loss, and how could we invest those, what I assume are actually billions of dollars worth of damage costs, how could we invest that into the hands that manage our land to turn it into a soil sponge to support all of the services that we need from our ecosystems. Again, thank you so much for providing this time and listening to my short request.
Yeah, well, thank you for being with us, Kat. I think if you've been on this morning throughout this hour or so, we did put 250,000 into Ryan Patch's ecosystems program, which is, they've been working at this for a while over there, but with no funding. And that did pass through our Senate Appropriations Committee. And I know the House has worked on ecosystems. As far as knowing the cost of what it actually has cost us in soil loss with the heavy rains, hopefully, healthier soils, better soils, more grass over soils will help prevent that in the future. And so we are working on issues to try to keep our planet a better place to live and a healthier place to live. And we'll keep at it. And with the help of, folks like yourself and others on the call, it works. We can get a little money and move forward. So thank all of you for your hard work.
May I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah, as long as it's not too hard.
Okay, I think it is pretty hard. Sorry for that. I will let you know that I do have a seat on the Payment for Ecosystems Services and Soil Health Working Group. And I'm delighted that the Vermont Ecosystem Stewardship Program is getting some funding. I think that must be what you're talking about. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in connecting the economic impacts with ecological treatment. And I've yet to see the cost of these storms. And I just wonder, is there an agency that is responsible for, and is it a question we even ask? How much do these storms cost us, and can we project that future damage and think about savings?
I would think that with all the people that we have at Ag working on water quality and soil loss and A&R, I would think they must have somebody or a group of people that could come up with some estimate on that. And in your, if you're part of the ecosystems working group, you might, as a group, might be able to request that from the Agency of Ag and get something moving forward at that level, as well as us at the state level. So it would be good to have those numbers. Janice Rinkley.
Janice let us know she ended up not being able to make it, so we can go to Suzanne.
And Suzanne Long.
Suzanne has computer problems and can't get online either.
I'm glad it's not us chasing people away.
I'm here. I just have to get on. Yep. Here we are.
You are. You made it.
I did. And the phone's ringing and I don't know. Okay.
Well, welcome.
Yeah, internet issues. There's another topic, huh?
Yeah, you're the only one that's ever had a problem with that.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. My name is Suzanne Long, and my husband and I run Luna Blue Farm. I noticed in Alan's talk when he was on line there, he had an old picture of Tim and I on his desk from the co-op there. That was a little blast from the past. Tim and I have been farming organically since 1989. We started in New Hampshire, sorry to say. No, it's fine. And then I think we moved to Vermont in 91. We're a diversified farm with vegetables and livestock. Our daughter is taking over our livestock operation. So that whole issue of farm succession and land access and affordability is also key on our mind. Let's see. When we moved to South Royalton, you know, we've sort of built this farm from the ground up. We didn't have a lot of outside resources. We've really depended on the income from the farm to build this farm. And it's taken us 30 some years to finally be able to breathe a little. And when we moved to South Royalton, we had a pretty strong connection with all the dairy farms here. I think I was a relief milker for most of them, including David Ainsworth, Bob Hull, the Spaldings, Rob Howe. And I say that just because it's so easy for us to think of all the different agricultural enterprises as in their own little silos. But in fact, you know, we're really dependent on each other. You know, we're vegetable growers. You know, that's a big part of our income, but we also raise livestock. So we do depend on, you know, our neighbors for hay, for example. I don't know if they really depended on me to do relief milking, but
I bet they do.
But it was one way I could contribute back. And I just wanted to touch on some of the issues that are sort of being addressed by the House and Senate currently, and maybe also with the picture of that interconnectedness of farms and how the vibrancy of other farms can affect your farm. And I think the other thing is resilience. We are all more resilient if we have more farm neighbors. You know, there's a lot of infrastructure things and supply chain issues that start to fall apart if you don't have a vibrant agricultural community. I wanted to talk a little bit about the raw milk bill and actually also bring up the Norwich Farm issue a little. And then touch on the adequate housing bill and the bill that is working with food in our schools. And all of these things do touch on resilience for our farms and for food security. I think with COVID, we've really, it's sort of brought up to us the fragility of our food systems, and then also how our food systems are set up, and when things break down a little bit, what kind of effect it can have on our farms. So I think Vermont, as Vermont thinks of new and innovative models, I think that will start to really build the success and resilience of our farms. So I see that the raw milk, and I want to say also, you know, food safety, I think, is a very important thing. And I think farmers really recognize that. We know that if there's an issue with food safety, it's going to affect all of us. So, and I think it is also very important to recognize the great asset we have with our Vermont Extension Program. They do an amazing job helping farmers make sure they're meeting those food safety standards. And I think, you know, when they ask for money, give it to them, because they do a tremendous job. And when we're thinking about bills that deal with raw milk and on-farm slaughter, I know that food safety is a big concern. But farmers are aware of that and linked with the work that UVM Extension does to make sure the training is there for safe handling of food. I think Vermont is in a great position. Just to the details of the raw milk bill that's now just come across to the Senate. I think that bill will be a great way for those dairies, the tier 2 dairies, to be able to expand their markets by being able to sell their milk to CSA farms and farm stands. So economically, it's an economic boon to those farms that have already taken those expensive steps to be that level of food safety and handling of their milk, to be able to recoup some of that by being able to expand their markets. And it will add to CSA farms and farm stands' ability to provide product that is wanted in the community in a safe way. I think the way as I understand the way the bill is written, it's a good way, it's a good next step. Vermont has been cautious in their allowing of raw milk, but I think we've seen that we haven't had some issues. And so I think we're ready for that next expansion. It would help our farm. You know, we have people ask us about raw milk, and they would be delighted to be able to get raw milk from us at our CSA. Now I'll jump quick to the Norwich Farm issue and the VTC. I know it's a really complicated issue. There's a lot of crazy history there, it sounds like. I do want to say, though, that the Norwich Creamery, the Norwich Farm, is another innovative model that when we think about dairy in Vermont and dairy surviving in Vermont, the Norwich Creamery has been a great model. Chris and Laura have done an amazing job with that little creamery. And it also shows, another model of resilience. When COVID hit, they had their little farm stand that they were able to take our produce in that springtime when our greenhouses were flooded with spinach and we couldn't do the farmers markets. We had pretty much a direct market through them. So this is just an example of how, these smaller farms can pivot and they can help other farms pivot. So anyway, and I think the issue with VTC is complicated. I think, unfortunately, if VTC was gifted that land and they are not willing to work with Laura and Chris, who they brought to that place with a 5-year contract. And Laura and Chris have built that business, and they are trying to work with VTC to be able to buy that infrastructure that the state and the federal government has put lots of money in building up, through grants. That's our taxpayer dollars. We've built up this great little infrastructure in Norwich, Vermont. And as I understand it, VTC just wants to be able to sell that at market prices for development. Tear down that structure and just sell it for whatever they can get for it. It doesn't make any sense. We've already spent a lot of money. We've already invested in that facility. It gives me pause when I hear that now they want to do a on-farm slaughter or a slaughtering program. What's going to happen? Anyway, I mean, VTC, we love VTC, so I'm really conflicted. We want VTC to survive, but I really don't know what's happening here in terms of VTC as a training place for agriculture that is then not supporting an entity. So I think it's a complicated issue, but I think as a local farmer, knowing what this creamery has done to enrich the local food economy in the Upper Valley, it just doesn't make any sense to tear it down. So there, I leave that.
Yeah.
And I just want a couple few things was, I know that there's legislation to promote school lunch programs, support school lunch programs. And one of that part is to fund schools to be able to buy from local farms. And I know we've done that in the past, maybe, I don't know, 8 years ago, there was some pretty good funding for schools to be able to buy from local farms. And that really enabled us and other local farms to do a lot more with schools on a regular basis. A lot of farms support the schools and they want to help schools have good food for the kids, and they end up donating food. And that works sort of, but it's not always what the school needs when the school needs it. So I think, if we could figure out a way to enable schools to more easily purchase food locally, that will help farms, it will help schools, and that whole connection with schools and farms. I've been involved with Farm to School forever. That's the problem. I've been farming too long. I have too many feet in different things. And then just another quick thing is that I don't know what the bill is, but I know there's a talk about adequate livestock housing. And I think we want to make sure that the language is clear, or there's some clarification that regulation for adequate livestock housing does not hinder intensive rotational grazing. That's something my daughter is doing. That's good for the land, good for the health of the animals. But if the animals are needing to be coming back to a barn, that does not always work for the kind of grazing that we're doing to build the soils. Back to Kat, and those are some of the things that are really building soils, sequestering carbon, and all those great things that we want to be doing. I could talk about many other things, but I'm not going to.
Well, someday when it's slow, Jesse, we'll call you and you keep us filled in. But thank you very much for all that you've given us. And we, as far as the Norwich farm, we just heard about what was transpiring there day before yesterday. And as I said earlier, we've got the president of VTC coming in tomorrow, as well as somebody from the Upper Valley Land Trust and somebody from the citizens group, I hope, that's trying to save that. But I certainly agree with your opinion on that farms and what's there. Yeah, we lose enough farms already without an institution chasing them out. And so anyways, we're on to that. And our Universal Meals Program got voted out of our committee, Senate Education Committee, and it'll be in approach, I believe, this afternoon. And hopefully we'll move that forward. And there is a provision in there for schools to buy from local farmers. And so anyways, we're doing that. And we got to run because we've got another meeting at 12:30 and we still got Jesse. Is Jesse with us?
I am. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning. Thank you for hearing me this morning. My name is Jesse Lucas. I own operate a farm in Charlotte, Vermont. We have an organic 5.5 acre USDA certified organic and real organic certified farm. It's operated by myself and my brother and a dear friend of mine. We produce high quality organic vegetables, greens, and cannabis. On our farm, we have a 13,000 square foot Dutch Venlo greenhouse. We have a Ornois tunnel, and we're adding more tunnels this year through the NRCS. Why we got into farming, we wanted to be able to support our families, contribute to our communities, promote a healthier lifestyle by providing local, fresh, organic produce. We saw an opportunity with this property that we purchased 3 years ago, and we believed with this greenhouse we could sort of have a future in horticulture, especially with climate change. There is a need in agriculture for younger generations to adopt technology to improve production, reduce costs, and ultimately increase profitability. This is the only way to make farming a viable career choice to ensure farm success and feasibility. We strongly believe in strict organic practices, building living soils, crop rotation, companion planting, cover cropping, and no-till practices. We continue to farm because we enjoy the hard work, the daily problem solving, the autonomy, the satisfaction of growing, consuming our own food, and actually contributing to something meaningful to us in society. We aim to be at the forefront of contributing to research, sharing our data, our knowledge, and our journey, and we hope to inspire others to begin farming. We want to share our experiences and collaborate and ensure that all this around us elevate as we continue to grow our farm. The reason I would like to be able to take this opportunity today and thank Rural Vermont, NOFA, and all of you, and to speak sort of on Act 164, which is pertaining to cultivation and the sort of rec market that we're going to see. My concerns are sort of allowing cultivation on land zone for agricultural use. The cultivation of cannabis is fundamentally an agricultural activity. As we've heard earlier today, Act 164 includes too many arbitrary regulations and places too many barriers to entry onto local farms that prevent them from fairly participating in the emerging legal market. We would like to see an allowance of outdoor production on land, the use of infrastructure and agricultural easements zoned for agricultural use, and the current use at any scale of outdoor production. Outdoor cultivation of cannabis and infrastructure directly related to on-site outdoor cultivation, as with other agricultural cultivation associated infrastructure, shall not be regulated under VSA 24, Chapter 117, Local Zoning Land Use Regs. We would also like to see the eligibility to apply for grants, technical assistance, education, agricultural programs, and benefits to include cultivation licenses that allow for breeding and sale of seed and plant starts. My other sort of points are around sort of craft licensing, as we've also heard today. A primary objective of 164 transition Vermont's, as we know, illicit businesses around cannabis into a legal marketplace, and that require a fair and equitable license program. Under the new law, only state registered dispensaries have their licenses completely defined, allowing them to get out rolling as this new law goes into effect. However, licenses for Vermonters are not completely defined, and that's a barrier to entry for small businesses. As a result, we would like to see an entire craft licensing system and vertically integrated small farm license for Act 164 that does not require the approval of the Cannabis Control Board and is offering an ongoing and unlimited basis and a cost amenable to Vermonters. Craft licenses include a cultivation, retail processor, wholesaler, delivery license, and more. The craft license application should be differentiated from non-craft license applications by fewer requirements, a less onerous practice, and a more affordable cost, which would be fixed in the price. There should be no limitations on the number of craft license holders in the state. We would include the differentiated caps on production and sales of licensed indoor, mixed light, and outdoor scale, approximately a 1 to 2 to 4 ratio, indoor, mixed light, and outdoor tier permitted systems. The only requirement that we already know about is the background check. Craft license tiers can sell products from and service only craft cultivators. Craft license towards the only license per capita or craft license would be restricted in the opt-in clause. Craft licenses would only be able to transact with other craft license holders. Craft retailers would only be able to resell products by craft cultivators and craft processors. Craft processors will only be able to process for craft cultivators and wholesale craft retailers. We are basically trying to create a equal opportunity in this emerging marketplace, which we do believe falls under ag. And thank you for hearing me out today.
Well, thank you very much, Jesse. We'll deal with that as it comes up, I guess, in the Senate, and we'll move on to Maddie. Have you got some closing remarks, Maddie? I hate to rush you, but we've got to be on the Senate floor in just a few minutes. So.
No, absolutely. Thank you for letting us go a little bit over our time. And I don't have any of my own testimony to share. I just want to say thank you so much to all the members of both committees for having us, for hearing from so many diverse farmers, food producers, and growers today about such a breadth of issues. And we're grateful to you for all the work that you're doing this session. And just please, consider us a resource, as you have been, to reach out on any of the issues that were touched on today. We're happy to connect you with any of the folks that testified here today and other folks who may be able to provide you with some expertise on issues that you're considering. So just thank you so much again.
Yeah, well, thank you, Maddie. Thank you for helping to set this all up. I know it's a lot of work when you do something like this, and we certainly appreciate that. And so on behalf of both the House and the Senate, I'd like to thank all of the folks that you brought in today. Certainly appreciate the diverse group and the good testimony that they all gave. So with that, if any of your folks, contact you with issues, feel free to contact us anytime, which you can do, and we'll deal with it. So thank you, committee members from the House and my fellow senators. And on our side, we'll see you in a few minutes at the next meeting.